Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. We're continuing our reading of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, taking up where we left off on Wednesday night last. 35. We made so much progress. That's amazing. Mantra Guru Aro Jata Shikha Guru Ghan Tahar Charana Age Kare Vandan. I first offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master and all my instructing spiritual masters. So Mantra Guru, up. The initiating spiritual master, Aro, and also Jata, as many as there are. Shikha Guru Gan, all of the instructing spiritual masters. Tahar, of all of them. Charana, at the lotus feet. Age, at first. Kare, I offer. Vandana, my respectful obeisance. I first offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master. And Jata Shikha Guru, Tahar, as many as there are, all my Shiksha Guru, the Gana. Gana means the group of instructing spiritual masters. I offer my respects at their lotus feet. Purport. Sheila Jiva Goswami, in his thesis, Bhakti Sandarbha 202, has stated that uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas, and that one has to execute such service in the association of other devotees. By associating with devotees of Lord Krishna, one develops a sense of Krishna consciousness and thus becomes inclined toward the loving service of the Lord. This is the process of approaching the Supreme Lord by gradual appreciation in devotional service. I'll read that again. This is the process of approaching the Supreme Lord by gradual appreciation in devotional service. So in other words, we associate with the devotees. There's no other way to get Krishna consciousness or to advance in Krishna consciousness. One must associate, and association means that we have to hear and chant with the devotees. We also have to serve the devotees, and we have to be very respectful in our dealings, understanding that the Vaishnavas are very dear to Lord Krishna. And from that kind of association, then we get gradual appreciation of devotional service from the Vaishnavas. If one desires unalloyed devotional service, one must associate with devotees of Sri Krishna, for by such association only can a conditioned soul achieve a taste for transcendental love and thus revive his eternal relationship with Godhead in a specific manifestation and in terms of the specific transcendental mellow, rasa, that one has eternally inherent in him. That's so important, I'm going to read it again. If one desires unalloyed devotional service, one must associate with devotees of Sri Krishna, for by such association only can a conditioned soul achieve a taste for transcendental love and thus revive his eternal relationship with Godhead in a specific manifestation and in terms of the specific transcendental mellow, rasa, that one has eternally inherent in him. If one develops love for Krishna by Krishna conscious activities, one can know the Supreme Absolute Truth, but he who tries to understand God simply by logical arguments will not succeed, nor will he get a taste for unalloyed devotion. The secret is that one must submissively listen to those who know perfectly the science of God, and one must begin the mode of service regulated by the preceptor. A devotee already attracted by the name, form, qualities, etc. of the Supreme Lord may be directed to his specific manner of devotional service. He need not waste time in approaching the Lord through logic. The expert spiritual master knows well how to engage his disciples' energy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and thus he engages a devotee in a specific devotional service according to his special tendency. A devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master, because in the scriptures, acceptance of more than one is always forbidden. There is no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept a spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in his endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is not properly initiated may present himself as a great devotee, but in fact he is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on his path of progress towards spiritual realization, with the result that he must continue his term of material existence without relief. Such a helpless person is compared to a ship without a rudder. Such a ship can never reach its destination. It is imperative, therefore, that one accept a spiritual master if he at all desires to gain the favor of the Lord. The service of the spiritual master is essential. If there is no chance to serve the spiritual master directly, a devotee should serve him by remembering his instructions. There is no difference between the spiritual master's instructions and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of the disciple. If one thinks that he is above consulting anyone else, including a spiritual master, he is at once an offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. Such an offender can never go back to Godhead. It is imperative that a serious person accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of the Shastra conjunctions. Sri Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social or ecclesiastical conventions. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. And now, I'd like to just, before we take questions, to illuminate and expand the conversation, please look at Srimad Bhagavatam 11, 22, 34. And if you want a shortcut method for getting there, as Shraddha pointed out to me yesterday, you can go to Google and put in 11, 22, 34, and you go fast as lightning. Atma pariyagnanamayo vivadho hyastiti nastiti vidharta nishta vyarto pinaivo paramita pumsam mata paravritta diyam swalokat. So Atma means of the Supreme Soul, aparignanamaya, based on lack of full knowledge. Vivada, speculative argument. He, indeed, asti, this world, is real. Iti, thus saying, na asti, it is not real. Iti, thus saying, bida, material differences. Artanishta, having as its focus of discussion. Vyarta, worthless. Api, although. Na, does not. Eva, certainly. Uparamita, cease. Pungsam, for persons. Mata, from me. Paravrata, who have turned. Diyam, their attention. Swalokat, who am non-different from them. And the translation is everybody listening? Yes? Okay. The speculative argument of philosophers, this world is real, no, it is not real, is based upon incomplete knowledge of the Supreme Soul and is simply aimed at understanding material dualities. Although such argument is useless, persons who have turned their attention away from me, their own true self, are unable to give it up. And here's the purport. If one doubts the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will inevitably doubt the reality of the Lord's creation. Thus, without understanding Lord Krishna, mere argument and debate over the reality and non-reality of the material world are useless. The material world is real specifically because it emanates from the Supreme Reality. Lord Krishna. Again, the material world is real specifically because it emanates from the Supreme Reality, Lord Krishna. Without understanding the reality of Lord Krishna, one can never definitely ascertain the reality of his creation. One will always wonder if he is actually seeing something or merely thinking that he is seeing it. This kind of speculation can be resolved without, this kind of speculation can never be resolved without taking shelter of the Supreme Lord and is therefore useless. The devotees of the Lord are not inclined to such argument because they're factually advancing in spiritual enlightenment and are fully satisfied with their progressively more beautiful experience of Krishna consciousness. So don't boo, chant. Don't complain, chant. Don't argue, chant. Of course, Siddhanta Bulachitana Alash Iha Hoite Krishna Lage Sudrid Manash. One should thoroughly and fully discuss the Shastra to come to Siddhanta, but that should be the purpose. However, if we look again at this verse, you go up a little higher, we see this tendency is to argue about things which are aparya jnana maya. They're based on lack of knowledge. In other words, if a person doesn't have full realization of the topic, he or she argues it and vacillates from one position to the next. The person who's arguing for something can end up on the other side of the argument and say, oh, now I accept this. Back and forth it goes. And so arguing amongst people who don't have full realization are simply vivada, they're speculating. And they don't have surrender in mind, and they haven't had any realization, therefore, go on arguing for no good reason, and it's not helpful. So one has to come to the point of surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you go back to the verse that we have today from the Caitanya-caritamrta, part of the surrender process is this acceptance of the spiritual master and submission in the matter of hearing Krishna consciousness through the parampara, executing the orders and the association of other devotees. So now let's take some questions that will illuminate the conversation and expand it.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, what is uncontaminated devotional service? What we read today in the purport.
It means that anyabilashita shunyam. It's free of jnana karma nyanavritam, this definition of uncontaminated devotional service. Uncontaminated devotional service means that we're not self-interested and asking anything for ourselves. We're doing service for service. So also there's a sense that there's a progression in the process of coming to the perfection of devotional service, which is uncontaminated, in which one may start with, for instance, in the Vedic process, offering karma. It means I'm following the Vedic injunctions and I'm doing sacrifice as mentioned in the Vedas. And then later on, I get a sense of knowledge through which I'm speculating about the Lord. So that there's karma, jnana, but in bhakti, there's a spontaneous way in which, out of love, we're offering Krishna everything. All of our activities, whatever we're doing, we're simply doing out of spontaneous love for Krishna. So there's a progressive path that comes to that point. In the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about how some people try vidyamam soma papa. He mentions there's a way in which people who are performing karma ascend to a higher position in the material world, but later on they fall back down again. And he also mentions that if somebody, he says that you can go anywhere you like in the material world, and that people oftentimes worship different demigods. And he said that they're actually worshiping me, but in a wrong way. And he says that it's very complicated to perform activities of karma and jnana. But for me, to worship me is very simple. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Easily obtained items like a fruit, a flower, water, you can offer me. And then Krishna says, Yat koroshi rashnasiyas johosi dadasyat yat tapasyasi kontyat tat kurishva manarpanam. He's saying that actually to get into this uncontaminated devotional service, one can, instead of offering things through the demigods and so forth, you can directly offer it to me. Whatever you're doing, offer it to me. And this is a precursor to coming to the point of unalloyed devotional service, where one has no conception that I'm getting something in return. I'm doing this, or for instance, in karma, one does one's work, and at the end of the day, one may say, I offer this to Krishna. Or one may do some sacrifice like fasting, and at the end of the day, one says, I offer this to Krishna. But actually, Prahlad Maharaj says, when one comes to the platform of unalloyed devotional service, he's engaged in the direct process of worshiping Krishna without doing one's own work and then offering that work later on. So he mentions to his father, when the father Hiranyakashipu asked, what is the best thing you've learned? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam, Iti Pum Sart Pita Vishnu, Bhaktishchan Navalakshana, Kriyeta Bhagavat Yada, Tan Manam Ditam Uttamam. There's a way in which he says that when one's intention is first to worship me, and then it enters into these 9 processes of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, with the sole intention of worshiping Krishna, of glorifying him. This is direct devotional service. And when one's engaged in these processes directly to worship Krishna, with no sense of karma, that I'm doing something for myself and then later offering it to Krishna, or jnana, using my own intelligence to speculate who's God, but I'm simply directly worshiping him, and I have no ulterior motive. This is anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmanyanavrtam. It's free from all these other tendencies. And anukulyena krishnanu shilanam. There's a way that it's favorable to Krishna, because there are some who think of Krishna constantly, but they're thinking of him in a derogatory way, like Shishupal. He thought of Krishna from the time he was born, but he was complaining about him. He was always criticizing Krishna, blaspheming him. And Kamsa thought of Krishna constantly. So this is not anukul, it's not favorable. The unalloyed devotional service means that a person's always thinking of Krishna, but it's anukul. He's thinking favorably. How can I give some comfort to Krishna? How can I give something nice to Krishna? And they're spontaneously engaged in that way. And in the beginning, we cultivate that through our Vaidhi Bhakti, offering things to Krishna according to the rules and regulations of Panchratrik. And we also immediately can enter into the process of direct devotional service through hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on, that are mentioned in the 9 processes. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Is there another question here?
Maharaj, this Shamalangi Devidar.
Hare Krishna, Shamalangi.
The verse you just quoted, I had heard of a very similar one. I just came across. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 6.4.31, and it's also quoted in Caitanya-caritamrta in the when Gopinath Acharya is talking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So the translation says, this is 6.4.31 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, who possesses unlimited transcendental qualities, acting from within the cores of the hearts of all philosophers who propagate various views. He causes them to forget their own souls, while sometimes agreeing and sometimes disagreeing among themselves. Thus he creates within this material world a situation in which they are unable to come to a conclusion. I offer my obeisances unto him.
Yeah, nice citation. Let me read the purport. Since time immemorial, or since the creation of the cosmic manifestation, the conditioned souls have formed various parties of philosophical speculation, but this is not true of the devotees. Non-devotees have different ideas of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and therefore they are called vadis or prativadis, proponents and counter-proponents. It is understood from the statement of Mahabharata that there are many munis or speculators, tarko pratishta shrutayo vibhinna, nasav rashir yasya matam nadinam. All speculators must disagree with other speculators. Otherwise, why should there be so many opposing parties concerned with ascertaining the supreme cause? Philosophy means finding the ultimate cause. As Vedanta Sutra very reasonably says, atato brahma jignasa, human life is meant for understanding the ultimate cause. Devotees accept that the ultimate cause is Krishna because this conclusion is supported by all Vedic literature and also by Krishna himself, who says, aham sarvasya prabhava, I am the source of everything. Devotees have no problem understanding the ultimate cause of everything, but non-devotees must face many opposing elements because everyone who wants to be a prominent philosopher invents his own way. In India, there are many parties of philosophers such as Dvaitavadis, Advaitavadis, Vaisesikas, Mamamshakas, Mayavadis, and Swabhavavadis, and each of them opposes the others. Similarly, in the Western countries, there are also many philosophers with different views of creation, life, maintenance, and annihilation. Thus, it is undoubtedly a fact that there are countless philosophers throughout the world, each of them contradicting the others. Now one might ask why there are so many philosophers if the ultimate goal of philosophy is one. Undoubtedly, the ultimate cause is one, the Supreme Brahman. As Arjuna told Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 10:12, Param Prema Param Dhama Pavitram Paramang Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. You are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth, and the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original, and you are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. Non-devotee speculators, however, do not accept an ultimate cause, sarva karana karanam, because they are ignorant and bewildered concerning the soul and its activities. Even though some of them have a vague idea of the soul, many controversies arise, and the philosophical speculators can never reach a conclusion. All of these speculators are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 16:19 through 20, Tanahang Tvishatam Krura, Kuran Samsareshu Naradhaman, Shrapam Ajasramashubhan, Asura Shreva Yonishu, Asurim Yonima Panna, Mudha Janmana Janmani, Mudha Janmani Janmani, Mam Aprapyaiva Kaunteya, Tato Yantyatamam Gatim. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life, attaining repeated birth and death. Attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Because of their envy of the Supreme Personality of God, and non-devotees are born in demoniac families, life after life. They are great offenders, and because of their offenses, the Supreme Lord keeps them always bewildered. Kurvanti chaisham muhur atmamoham. The Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, purposefully keeps them in darkness. Atmamoham. The great authority, Parashara, the father of Vyasadeva, explains the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus: Jnana Shakti Balaishvarya Virya Tejam Sasheshata Bhagavat Shabda Vachyani Vina Heyar Gunadibi. The demoniac speculators cannot understand the transcendental qualities, form, pastime, strength, knowledge, or opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which are all free from material contamination. Vina he yar gunadibi. These speculators are envious of the existence of the Lord. Jagaradhur anishvaram. Their conclusion is that the entire cosmic manifestation has no controller, but is just working naturally. Thus, they are kept in constant darkness, birth after birth, and cannot understand the real cause of all causes. This is the reason why there are so many schools of philosophical speculation. Thank you. A very important introduction of that verse. And from Vaikuntha Nayaka, Prabhu, he says, in the Srimad Bhagavatam verse, we read that without getting an understanding of Krishna, it is not possible to understand the nature of this world. But isn't the Sankhya process all about knowing the 23 elements of material world to be impermanent, and then graduating to the spiritual platform and knowing Krishna? Aren't the two seemingly contradictory? We should know from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishto mataksmitir jnanam apohanam cha vairashya sarvarhameva vedya vedanta kridveda videva chaham. First of all, that Krishna is the source of all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Furthermore, he's also the goal of the Vedas. He's the creator of the Vedas, and he's the goal of the Vedas. Let's speak of the various Vedic processes. These are all like tributaries and of rivers. And unless these various other tributary philosophies connect to the main river, like the Ganga, that is huge and is inexorably flowing towards the ocean, they don't make it all the way. So a lot of these philosophies and philosophers that are mentioned, unless they become devotees and come to the point of understanding that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that Krishna is everything. As Krishna mentions in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Jamanamante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. There are all kinds of speculators who try to understand the absolute truth in this way or that way. But until they come to the point of Vasudeva Sarvamiti, the Vasudeva's everything. Everything's meant for Krishna. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was a young scholar, he used to argue all the time. And then when he went to Gaya, he met Sheila Ishvarapuri and he surrendered. And when he came back, he was interpreting all his teachings in Sanskrit to his students who were studying grammar. They say, what are the meaning of these verbal roots? And he said, they all mean Krishna. Everything means Krishna. And they went to his teacher, his education guru, and he said to Gangadas and Pandit, and they said, I think that Nimai Pandit's gone mad. He says that everything means Krishna. Everything is Krishna. Everything means Krishna. There's no other meaning. But that's the truth. It all does mean Krishna. So when, after all these philosophies are said and done, until they lead into the process of pure devotional service, then they leave us stranded somewhere and without a resting place. But if one takes to the process of devotional service, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashuvairagyam Yanam Chayarahaitukam, the kind of Gyan and Vairagya, this Sankhya philosophy is meant to help us understand one thing. There's a difference between consciousness and matter. And then it's meant to bring us to understand that there's a controller of all matter. This is what Kapila, the manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, teaches in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, there's an atheist Kapila also that we're not to follow. And his conclusion and the conclusion of many Sankhya followers is there is no supreme, and that the soul is a temporary manifestation in this world also. So the perfection of that knowledge comes as one enters into the process of direct devotional service, and then these understandings are concomitant. One understands I'm different from matter, and one also becomes detached or unattached from the material world. Then we have from Dhanavari. She says, you mentioned the other day that when we pray to Radha and Krishna, we are praying to Lakshmi Narayan. Can you please explain much more about this? If so, we pray Lakshmi Narayan directly. It means that Vraj Bhakti is Raga Bhakti. We're on the Rag Marg, but to get there, because our devotional service isn't spontaneous, we're given the Pancharatric system. So when we worship Radha Krishna, of course they're Radha Krishna. We see Krishna there with his flute and Radharani, but we're worshiping him in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, because in the temple worship, we see Krishna as the king. Everything has to be there perfectly in order, on time. And this is the way that we worship Krishna in the temple, so that gradually we'll come to the point of a spontaneous devotional service, but even the external worship will remain the same. But in the beginning, we can't claim to be spontaneous lovers of Krishna. The method of worshiping Krishna in Vraja is unceremonious. There is no ritual. It's all coming from the heart, and it is not understandable and it shouldn't be imitated by those who are not spontaneously attracted yet. Tadiya Seva, the Supreme Lord in old Vedic literature addressed as Supreme Brahman before Bhagavatam was written by Sheila Vyasadeva. What's the question? Was the Supreme Lord in old Vedic literature addressed as Supreme Brahman before Bhagavatam was written by Sheila Vyasadeva? In the Rig Veda, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada Pashanti Surayo Divavachakshurata Tanta Vipraso Vipanyavo Jagravam Sahasminda Te Vishnu Yat Paramam Param. The Supreme is there, situated in his abode, and those who are in knowledge of him, of Vishnu, they're keeping their vision fixed on that supreme goal. So yes, the Supreme Lord is there in the ancient Vedas, and his name is Vishnu. And Sid says, in the last line of the purport, one is advised to simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master. How does one go about trying to find a spiritual master? The way that one finds a spiritual master, primary way is to become a sincere disciple, because Krishna actually is within the heart, and he reveals knowledge to us according to our desire. Yeyata mam prapadyante tanstataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanavartante manusha parta sarvasha. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, as you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly. So according to the intensity of our desire to know Krishna, Krishna reveals himself. And one of the ways that he reveals himself, the primary way in which he reveals himself, is through guidance from the external, our external environment, especially through the principle of guru. So you see the example of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was a 5-year-old boy. He just heard from his mother that he needed to get relief from his current situational problem by finding God. So he said, if it's the last thing I ever do, I'm going to find God. I mean, his mood was do or die. I'm going to find God. And he didn't know who he was. He didn't know exactly how to find him, but he had the intensity of desire to find him. And because of that, Narada Muni intercepted Dhruva Maharaj on his way to the forest. And then it gave him instruction about how to actually find God. That was a result of Krishna being in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj and instructing Narada Muni to come and meet him. So meeting of a spiritual master is dependent on one's intensity of purpose to know the absolute truth. And when that is there, one is able to be enlivened from within the heart to meet up with those Deeksha, a Deeksha guru and Shiksha gurus who can assist one in understanding the absolute truth. So that's where it begins. One should also, just like if you're going to go to a doctor, you should find out what is a doctor. Because practically nowadays, everybody's a doctor, it seems to me. If you go on social media, everyone will tell you how to cure the coronavirus. Somebody the other day posted that if you just inhale vodka, that you'll become free from the virus. Apparently that's a Russian cure. And every other form, just take this, just take that, whatever. Everybody's a doctor. So you should find out who's actually a real doctor before you go in to have your self operated upon. And like in finding a normal doctor, what do? I mean, did the person go through medical school? Let's say you're going to an Ayurvedic doctor. Ayurveda is very complicated, and it's an intuitive science. It's like most other sciences ultimately has an intuitive side. And, you really have to get training from a master to become a great Ayurvedic doctor. And you have to practice yourself in order to come to the point of being able to take somebody's pulse. Or an allopathic doctor, a heart doctor. I was reading an article the other day in research for my book. It was all about how the stethoscope became the main symbol of a doctor, isn't it? Whenever you see a doctor, a picture of a doctor, even like if it's an advertisement using an actor that looks like a doctor, you put on two things. One's a white lab coat, and the other is a stethoscope hanging around the neck. Think about that. If you don't have one of those, you're not really a doctor. And those who know how to listen to somebody's heart can hear all kinds of sounds that nobody else can hear. This was in the article I was reading about heart doctors. And actually they had the recording on the website of what they play the recording of the heart, which is extremely revealing, when you think about the heart in their beating, and there's all kinds of complicated parts going on within the heart, different compartments and so forth. And then the doctor was explaining what he heard. I didn't hear anything. I just heard blood flowing through some ventricle, and he heard, oh, this person has, something's wrong with part of the ventricle. It needs to be fixed. He could hear it because he's been trained. So if you want somebody to assist you on your spiritual path, that person has to have studied under another doctor. Can't have just read a textbook. Prabhupada points this out, that you don't go to a doctor and say, how'd you become a doctor? And say, so, well, I just read the textbook. You have to ask, ask Neil, our Dr. Jariwala. He had to go through studying under all these teachers, and now he has to do residency. So those who have studied under a bona fide teacher who's a master, and then they've become acquainted with the science through practicing it themselves and learning everything about it, then become able to listen to our heart and say, okay, I hear a little, defect from the sound that's coming from you right now. Let's adjust it. So you have to study the science of who is a guru. There are many verses in the Shastra which explain Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jignasu Shreya Uttamam Shabde Paricha Nishnatam Brahman Upashramashayam. So this is one of the verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Krishna says, therefore, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta, you should surrender to a guru. What is a guru? Jignashu Shreya Uttamam. You should inquire from him about the ultimate goal of life. Don't go ask stupid questions about how I can get a better economic situation. Shabde Parijanishnatam. A guru is somebody who has heard thoroughly. That's the main qualification. A person who has heard all of the sound vibrations coming from the Shastra and from his spiritual master. Shabde Pari, as Prabhupada puts it poetically, that person has taken a dip in the ocean of transcendental knowledge. Because you need somebody who can diagnose you and then remove the obstacles. Shadde Paritanishnatam Brahman Upashramashrayam. And that person should also be absorbed in the process, him or herself, and practicing fully. So many verses like that. So that's a few thoughts for you, Sid Prabhu. Monisha says, in regards to devotional service and taking to spirituality, we know that is how we can attain, that is how we can attain ultimate happiness. But we were reading the other day from Nectar of Devotion, and it said there are three kinds of happiness: material, spiritual, and devotional. Devotional service and the happiness due to execution are not possible as long as one is materially affected. I was a little confused why devotional and spiritual happiness are put in different levels. Isn't devotional happiness under spirituality? Could you clarify this? Yes, this is. These are the three categories that Rupa Goswami mentions. First, he mentions material happiness, which he said is a misnomer because there is no happiness at all in the material world. There's only suffering. Then he mentions the happiness of Brahman, which he said is millions of times greater than material happiness. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. You get when you realize you're not your body, as an example, it's a great relief. It's like, if you ever had a dream and you're about to be killed and then you wake up and you realize, oh, it was just a dream. How do you feel? Kind of happy, right? That's like Brahman happiness. Brahman happiness means I'm relieved because now I know I'm not actually a debtor. I actually have nothing to do with the material world. That's a big relief, but it's not really positive happiness. So then that's spirituality, spiritual happiness. But the highest happiness is the happiness of devotional service, and that means rasa. Raso Vaisaha. Krishna is the origin of all these rasas, and one enters into this rasa through the process of devotional service, and that means a loving relationship with Krishna in 5 kinds of relationships. And when the relationship is there, then we really start to taste happiness that makes the happiness of spirituality seem like the water contained within the hoofprint of a calf compared to the ocean. That's how great the devotional service is. Hope that helps, Monisha. Radhavenkat Prabhu, as usual, is giving us the pramanam very expertly. He gave 11.321. That's for you, Sid, and anyone else who wants to know where that verse is that I quoted. Mukharvinda also did that. Thank you. And here we have from Facebook. Anything more from Facebook? It looks like it ended after the Japa circle. We have Kalyan said, amazing point about the Aishvarya mood of bhakti and Madhurya mood of bhakti. Many of us don't have any conception of what Rag Marg is. Thanks for explaining it so nicely. Well, one of my favorite explanations of Rag Marg, and there are many explanations. It's a great science, and it's there within the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and many other of the Goswami literatures, and revealed to us throughout Prabhupada's teachings in various ways, but in a very spontaneous way of explaining it. Achyutananda Prabhu, who is one of the first, if not the first, follower of Srila Prabhupada, who came in 1966 or 7 in New York and started following Prabhupada. He's a really genius type of person, expert at practically everything that he does. And one of the first ones to bring bhajan into ISKCON. He was evading the draft of the Vietnam War, so Prabhupada sent him to India. He lived there at Prabhupada's godbrother's mutt, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, for many years. He learned Bengali and Hindi and all kinds of things. In any case, great soul. And a few years ago, after he wrote his book, Blazing Sadhus, he was giving a talk in New Vrindavan. And in a very impassioned speech, he was talking about Rag Marg. And he said, Prabhupada's getting on a boat with no money and coming to America with no connections, only the burning desire to please his spiritual master in his heart. He said, if you want to see Rag Marg, that's Rag Marg. I mean, like a madman practically. Sarup Damodar, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate associate, and when he heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he became like a madman. And he went away and then came back and joined Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he apologized for running off. But the devotees, they become overwhelmed by the process of serving the Supreme and serving their gurus and so forth. And in that, there's this spontaneous nature. And of course, as we know, the Ragmarg means to follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan, of Raj. This is our path. Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Smrityo Kramena Rasanamanasi Niyoja Tishtam Vraje Tananuragi Jananugami Kalam Nayed Akilam Itupadesha Saram. The essence of all advice in devotional service given by Rupa Goswami is that we should hear, chant, and remember and serve, etc. These 9 processes of direct devotional service. And we should come then to the point of becoming attracted to the sound vibration. It happens as a natural course. And from that, we'll become spontaneously attracted to a specific devotee in Vraj who's performing devotional service in a specific way. And we'll begin to follow in the footsteps of that devotee under guidance. And then we enter into Vraj, Tishtan Vraje, Tanaduragi Jananugami, by following in the footsteps of these parishads, the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But there are displays of Ragmarg even in this world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, on his logo for the Gaudiya Math, he put the printing press with the Brihat Madanga, he called it, and above it he put Ragmarg. There's a practical way in which we're also following the footsteps of those devotees who are so mad with love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that they'll go anywhere and everywhere in the world without concern for their own welfare, simply to spread the message and follow the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is also a display of spontaneity in devotional service without any doubt. Bhakti Paula, Hare Krishna. Just wanted to share this. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, Krishna says, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge. Yes, this is a very important point brought up in the first verse of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna reveals himself to Arjuna. We generally don't reveal ourselves to people, even casual associates or even friends. They have to be very intimate. And the reason they become intimate is we know they're not envious of us. They actually love us, and they're not competing, and they're not trying to dominate us. It's very rare in this world, but it's the most essential, actually, in devotional service, that we have this kind of relationship with devotees so we can reveal our hearts. Guhyamapyati prichyati. And when we approach Krishna, if we develop this non-envious attitude, and especially it starts with interacting with his devotees in a non-envious way and finding those with whom we can share our hearts, then Krishna begins to accept us as genuine and non-envious. And that's the position from which we're able to receive all knowledge about Krishna. Only from that position, because we can't ever approach him and know him in knowledge by demanding it or by competing with him. But if we surrender to Guru, Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Tata Guru, Tasyaite Caitanya-caritamrta Prakashanti Mahatmana. The Shastra says that only to those who are faithful in serving Guru and Krishna simultaneously do all the imports of Vedic knowledge come. You can memorize a lot of stuff, you can become a scholar, but you'll miss the point unless you're faithful. So the Guru principle is very important. It's out of all the 64 items of devotional service, the entryway, according to Rupa Goswami, is to surrender to Guru and understand that principle first. Vibhu Sharma from the Facebook says, how to remain steady in Krishna consciousness when one is not physically well or diseased. Yeah, that's a very difficult thing. So to be unwell physically, it makes it a little more difficult. So we should try to stay as healthy as possible. Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita, yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapna babodasya yogo bhavati dukkha. He said, try to remain balanced in your life so that you can dukkha, you can become free from misery so that you're not too distracted in your devotional practice. But I know devotees who are under severe restrictions according to their bodily existence, and there's no impediment ultimately. If you're sincere and you do what you can with what you have, Krishna will give you more facility to advance. I know devotees who, I know devotees who have, there was a devotee named Radhanath Das, and he passed away a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, but I used to do Sankirtan with him. He was confined to a wheelchair. He had some really awful disease that crippled him, hands, legs, everything. He had one of those automated mechanical wheelchairs, and he used to do Sankirtan, and he'd show up at every program and so forth. Where there's a will, there's a way. So you have to do what you can with what you have. And finally, Madhava Prema asks how to overcome the urge to do some mundane duty right now, even though it's sometimes which can be done later. For example, if a message comes while one is chanting and there is an urge to reply. So for those kinds of things, is everybody still there? Just checking.
Yes.
I'm going at 100 miles an hour here, and I hope I'm not.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Yes.
All right,
Hare
so,
Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
okay, wait, I'm not done. I'm answering Madhava Prema's question. He says, he gave a specific example of what if a message comes in when chanting and there's an urge to reply. Make a list, Madhava Prema, of all the ways in which you get distracted, and then eliminate those distractions. This is a very practical way to make advancement in any discipline and to become more focused in your life. First you have to become aware of what it is that's distracting you. It's like in business, in managing a business and helping it to expand, you have to know what the obstacles are. You have to actually list them, and then you have to brainstorm how to overcome the obstacles. This is part of growth in an organization. So in the same way, you have to have a list of the things that are distracting you in your life. Then you have to have a plan to overcome them. It doesn't happen automatically. What happens automatically is we get distracted because that's the tendency of the mind, and the material world accommodates that tendency. So for instance, you gave the example of being distracted by your cell phone while you're chanting. So now if you know that's a problem, write down that on a list, that this is what's distracting me. And now tell me 3 ways that you can overcome it, or at least one. Go ahead, type it in there. Please. Yeah, here you go.
Keep the cell phone away.
Okay, yeah, he's typing, but others are speaking it. So keep the cell phone away, like where? Keeping it in a different room. Madhava Prema said keeping it in a different room. Does a cell phone have an on-off switch?
Make an oath of turning
Yes,
off.
it does. What's that?
Make an oath of turning off your phone. You once did that.
Okay, make an oath to turn off your phone. Now there's a concept. What happens when the phone is off? It doesn't ring. It has no more power over us. So we have to decide ahead of time that we'll turn it off. And then, boy, what an empowerment that is when the phone's off. It has no more control over me. I'm superior energy to matter. But there's this very interesting phenomena that Kapila brings up. And it's it's Maitreya, because Vidura asks him, how is it that the superior energy of the soul gets dominated by matter? And And Maitreya said, it's an oddity. It's really a strange phenomena because we should be the dominant ones over matter. But it's because we become indifferent, he says, to Krishna. And vimukha, we turn our face away and we're just like, I'm not paying attention. So we have to become unmukha. We have to get our head in the game. You know, it's like your coach will tell you on the field, get your head back in the game. You know, you're just running around the field with no comprehension of what's happening. So find out what's going on around here and get back into it. So you have to be very deliberate. And that's why Rupa Goswami gives these 6 items that will take you in the wrong way, and 6 items will take you in the right way. They're very practical. So turn your phone off and put it in the other room and see how you feel. And, you know, maybe put it in your neighbor's house or put it in a safety deposit box while you chant japa. It depends how well you want to do. You're welcome. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else? Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
I was just thinking that I have 2 placards at home. I actually wrote down the quotes and put it just in front of where I chant. One of them says, Krishna is present fully in his holy name. And this is realized by the humility and sincerity not chanting. And the other one is replace behaviors that impede growth with behaviors that nourish it.
Let's say the second one. You said it really fast. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, replace behaviors that impede growth with behaviors that nourish it. And the flower of self-realization will bloom. So I have it put on like this. So I sit in front of it and chant. So personally, I think that if I get distracted, I can read it and reiterate that I am supposed to, especially as Prabhu said about the cell phone, that was the most difficult thing. So I knew that was the most impeding in my spiritual life. That's one of the impeding things. There are several. So I just try to have a quote in front of me. So I keep seeing it and it'll remind me, oh, I'm supposed to do it, remember?
Very good. Yes. So this means you have your head in the game and you're deliberately trying to pay attention and overcome the obstacles. And more may come up because, after some time, the words on the, on that document you put up there, you might not see it anymore. And then you have to come up with a new way to overcome it. So we always have to try to stay a few steps ahead. Madhava Govinda Prabhu gave us something from Amazon. I'm not sure what that is. Let's see. Then put your phone in a neighbor's house. Prashant. Okay. Would you please, Ekadashi-vrata, elaborate on how one can be humble and genuinely think all others are better than they are, but at the same time look for appropriate association which requires discernment? How can we be humble and genuinely think all others are better than they are? Oh, I see what you're saying. And then find appropriate association. Well, Mahaprabhu recommended find those who are more advanced than oneself and who are like-minded. Means they have the similar kind of mood in devotional service. Their goal is as similar, and they're more advanced. And how can you tell they're actually more advanced? It's really based on the ways that they are engaged in devotional service without any breakage. And you'll know it when you see it, because you feel that kind of association when you get into it. It draws you. You feel that you're being improved in your devotional service by being in that association. It's a very subtle energy, but the fact is that you walk away feeling, I'm better than I was before, and I'm getting nourishment from hearing from this person. And when you can find devotees like that, and they're in the same mood, like there may be great scholars and they're talking about this or that, but maybe they're not in the same mood. Like we have this, feeling of attraction for staying under Prabhupada's lotus feet, and he has certain conclusions. And like, for instance, his mood of preaching, he would talk about nonviolence that's there in every scripture. Ahimsa is the first process in Ashtanga Yoga, and Patanjali goes into great detail about it. Krishna talks about it when he says, Anambitva, Amanitvam, Adambitva, Ahimsa, Shantirarjavam, Ahimsa, Ahimsa, Ahimsa. So everyone interprets that differently. What is ahimsa? But Prabhupada's interpretation was ahimsa, nonviolence means you have to actually be preaching to people. Because if you see that they're suffering and you don't go give them Krishna consciousness, you're committing violence. That's a mood. And there are many other symptoms of that mood that come from Srila Prabhupada. So that's my example of what it means to discern somebody's mood. And when you resonate with that, then a like-minded, more advanced person is going to be somebody in that same mood that you're cultivating, who's obviously attached to Krishna, who's most addicted to hearing and chanting and so forth, and who helps you. And if you find somebody who's helping you, it means they're advanced and they're giving you the vibration that's curing your disease. Chitralekha Saki, fantastic. Great to see you here. In the purport of CC, we read today about the essential importance of Deeksha. Many years ago, a very senior devotee who is an initiating guru in our movement told me that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that if we think of him at the time of death, we go back to him, and that he does not mention Deeksha as a criteria. Please, how to understand these two apparently opposite statements? Well, Prabhupada mentioned that the mood is important. In his purport, you'll notice, Chitralekha Saki, that Prabhupada said, if you think you're above taking instruction from anybody else, then you become an offender. And, to actually come to the point of remembering Krishna, it's important to be a surrendered soul. And very prominently there in the Shastra is the way in which we become inclined toward taking shelter under Vaishnavas. Because the Vaishnavas are Krishna's representative. Actually, they have something even Krishna doesn't have. You can say, I just go to Krishna directly. And first of all, Krishna says in the Adi Purana, someone who says he's my devotee isn't my devotee. But somebody who says he's the devotee of my devotee is my devotee. What do devotees have that even Krishna doesn't have? The love of Krishna. Even Krishna wants that. That's why he comes as Lord Chaitanya and pretends to be a devotee. Because, I want that too. So devotees have that. They have that Swarup Shakti, the internal potency that as the lover of Krishna, and that's the energy that we're most interested in. And when we take shelter of Krishna's devotees and serve them, then Krishna's most satisfied, because Krishna loves his devotees so much and is always trying to serve them. He says that in the verse, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripasate tesham nityabdiyuktanam yogakshemam bahami aham. He says, for those who are ananyas chinta, their consciousness is only on serving me, then bahami, I personally come to serve them. With my own hands, it means vahami aham. With my own hands, I'm serving. It's not indirect. I love them so much, I want to serve them. On the other hand, devotees never want to take service from Krishna. So that's a conundrum for Krishna. So if you find a Vaishnav that's dear to Krishna and you serve that Vaishnav, you're fulfilling Krishna's innermost desire. And that's why you become very quickly recognized by Krishna. So you can say, I'll take Guru by Veda base. I'll just remember Krishna directly, and so forth. These things are not what Krishna says. They're not what his idea is, and so forth. So we need to find out what Krishna's mood is and how to serve him. And furthermore, there is something that Prabhupada said there, that you can be considered offensive if you think that I'm above putting myself under guru. First of all, somebody might say, well, I can't find any gurus because there's nobody in the world. There are no gurus in the world anymore. The last ones are gone. I mean, every religious tradition has a branch that says that. In Islam or whatever, I'm not going to mention particular ones, but they all say there was a last Messiah and then that's it. There's nobody else. Then what do you have? Well, how good is that process that, the last person was there, and then nobody else could come to a higher level to be a teacher in that position. It's all just us and then that Messiah that was there thousands of years ago in whatever tradition it's in. So that's a tendency to be kind of deliberately negligent of the good qualities in those who are following presently, and be able to see how could I get something from the person who's actually right here. Now, in the commentary to the 6th canto by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that one of the offenses in chanting the holy name, the third offense, is disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So he says that if you're chanting Hare Krishna and you don't take shelter of a Vaishnava for that chanting, and you think that there are no Vaishnavas, I don't need anybody, I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna directly, he says you're chanting Namaparādha, because although you're chanting, you're neglecting Guru, and therefore you're committing the third offense. And he says then, you go on chanting, and in your next life, then you can get Guru. And this is how important the Guru principle is, that you should be, yes, chant, but chant under the protection of a Vaishnava. And it's the first thing that Rupa Goswami says, out of the 64 items of devotional service, the gateway to entering into them as a Dao Guru Ashrayam. First take shelter of Guru. The Guru is a principle, and it's also a person. The principle of Guru is there, and it's universal, that you have to humble yourself and approach somebody and declare your intentions and have a conscious exchange so that there's acceptance, and then serve. We can go on like that, but there was a few ideas. Yes?
Could I just make a point?
I insist upon it.
Okay. Gaur Govinda Maharaj, in all of his books, he always makes this point about people who say that there's no more gurus left. And he always says that, is the sun rising in the morning? Is the moon shining? Is the universe functioning? And he says that the only reason why the universe is functioning is because the presence of a bona fide sadhus.
Yes, this is the purpose of the world, is to help all souls to go back to Godhead. And the only way that that's possible is if there's Vaishnavas, pure Vaishnavas in the world. And therefore, the proof that there are Vaishnavas in the world is that the sun is shining and the world's going on. Otherwise, it would cease to exist. There are always pure Vaishnavas walking the world somewhere. And just as the world's filled up with food and money, we can only get a certain amount of money. Have you ever noticed that? According to what's allotted to you, you can only get a certain quality and quantity of food. You can't insist upon it. Some people are starving, other people are rich, or some people are poor, even as hard as you might try. So in a similar way, according to our desire, we can find Guru and in this world. Well, we're running out of time because we have a very important presentation about Bhakti community. It's a fun, you get to watch a video and all kinds of stuff to orient us towards some of the very progressive steps we're taking to allow people to come closer to Krishna consciousness. And we're going to start in just a couple minutes as soon as I get positive confirmation that Jaya Madhava was ready to go. And in the meantime, oh, there he is. Okay. So,
Hare Krishna Guru.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, because you were trying to get in a few minutes ago, and
So Guru Maharaj, when you are answering Sirisha Mataji's question, you mentioned everything is Krishna and offer everything to Krishna. So I wrote some of my points, and just now you mentioned Ananya Chintayantoma. So only two things come to my mind always. So that is Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Saranam Vraja. And other thing is Ananya Chintayantoma Yejina Paryupasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. So like it is direct that please surrender to me. I will give you whatever you want. So I see Krishna in all beautiful things, and I offer all beautiful things to him, Guru Maharaj.
Well, that's why Krishna gave you this talent for art, because you have that sense of aesthetic. Actually, it's one of the most important services that one can do for Krishna. We notice that people are most spontaneously attracted to beautiful art, either in music, singing, dance, or painting. And really, Prabhupada wanted a cultural revolution through which we present Krishna in these beautiful ways. So it's important what you're doing to dedicate yourself to making beautiful presentations that will attract people's minds and hearts spontaneously.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Guru
you.
Maharaj. I only know decorating Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Whenever I go to India, I'll get all the silk cloths and jewelry to Krishna and decorate him nicely.
Well, that's really beautiful to think about that wherever you go and when you're shopping. This is why bhakti is so powerful, because we're actually serving the beautiful form of Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.